What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again. And this time we got Alec of Iatt. Thank you so much for your time today, man. Great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. So, we just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of your latest full-length album, Nomenclature. First off, I want to kind of turn back the clock a little bit. I really want to know what the thought process was kind of going into the making of this album, because this is a really unique record and really thought it was something new and different and fresh. So really, what was the idea of making Nomenclature?
Thanks, Vinny. I appreciate it. Nomenclature was kind of a turning point for us. We were kind of trying to really nail down what our sound was. And we had a lot of influences, and we kind of started out with having an overall concept of what we wanted to get our story across, and then by using a full kind of conceptualized story, we then were able to piece together the elements that we wanted to create this overarching theme of science in the 1700s.
Oh, wow. So is it fair to say that maybe you thought of this concept first and that helped dictated the direction of the music, or did you have some riffs and even songs written down before this idea sort of came into play?
I think if I remember correctly, we would have riffs here and there, and then once we started to maybe get into our second or third song, it was okay, we kind of see where we're going, let's pump the brakes a little bit, and then kind of expand on this idea, and then solidify everything else.
Mm-hmm. So, really, you would consider Nomenclature to be a concept album, right? Or is there room for this album to also be open to interpretation?
I think that it's very much a concept album, but there are parallels to things that are going on in the current day and age. Okay,
so this album predicted the future of what we're currently living in.
Maybe just quacks,
yeah.
and just medical science and all that stuff just kind of going awry, and the bridge between superstition and the horrors of reality.
Wow, I'm gonna send this album to Governor Cuomo and see if maybe he'll get some new ideas.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just imagine if he mentions that in the next press conference. That'll be the best publicity a band has ever gotten.
All right, well, you get credit for it too, man. What's your idea?
All right, I'm writing a letter to the governor as soon as I hang up the phone.
Sweet.
Yeah. But, do you recommend that, in order for a listener to get the full concept of Nomenclature, that they should start off with song number 1, Corpul Mal, I can't pronounce the first title, I'm sorry, and ending with Arsenic Ways?
I don't think you have to enjoy the whole album from start to finish like that. I think that if you do that, it does take you on a journey. We were very precise about how we mapped out this kind of roadmap of the album, but I think that you can absolutely take each song as it is.
Okay.
You don't have to listen to the whole thing to enjoy it.
Okay, so you could say that this album is very shuffle-friendly.
It can be, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely benefits to listening to it in one just kind of straight trajectory, but it is very shuffle-friendly, I'd say.
Awesome. Can this also maybe be a good representation on the direction that Iatt is going into in the future, or is this just kind of a one-off sort of experimental sort of element?
I think this is absolutely a good road mark as far as where we have been and where we're going now. I think the new people who liked Nomenclature, I think, are going to love the new album that we're working on right now. I think it's a continuation, and we were able to kind of test some things in Nomenclature to see what worked as far as our sound, and that now that we've kind of established that's what works, we've kind of matured that process up a little bit.
Okay, is the next album you were going to be maybe more just as conceptually driven?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And do you have the concept in mind already, or do you have to kind of want to wait a little bit?
So I don't know how much I could say. We definitely have our concepts planned out, and we've been working on integrating specific themes and little nuanced subject matter into each song. I don't know how much I can kind of divulge yet. I could say this, that it's a concept album, and we're kind of in the same vein, but going further back. And that's all I can tell you.
Okay. Oh, going further back, to maybe some, earlier singles, such as, St. Vitus Dance or something like that?
I was going to say, further back in time. Like if we kind of focused on like the 1700s for nomenclature, we're kind of going further back.
Ooh, okay. It's really cool on how elements of history like influence your sound because like I love it when bands like take a futuristic concept such as Fear Factory, for example, and
Yeah.
and kind of like are able to sort of like predict the future like that. But it almost seems like that you guys are really able to make take a concept from earlier, like way back in the day, and really make it relevant to today's day and age.
It's funny, they say like history is cyclical, and there's absolutely 100% truth to that. That there's elements of things that have happened in the past that you really can just like, you look at it and you're like, wow, this is very prevalent today. Like I could totally see some parallels. So
Yeah. When I was in art school, I took a class called Art, Science, and the Spiritual, and you really learn on how like art, history, science, and philosophy even really kind of like evolved and moved forward at the same time. So
there's parts in history where that's all rolled into one, to be honest. Like there's the lines between religion and spiritualism and art and science are all kind of like, it's very muddy at times in history, which is super interesting, I think.
yeah, why do you feel that the music that Iatt plays almost best fits the sort of subject matter that you're demonstrating?
I think because we're pulling from a lot of different influences musically, as far as like genres go. I think that kind of it lends to the I guess like we were saying the binding of different sort of different practices, if you will.
Okay.
You know, there's different elements in. I'm trying not to give away too much about what the themes of the new album are. So
Yeah. No, it's all good. What I find unique is because, I thought the vocals were phenomenal on here, but I also feel like if you made like an instrumental version of Nomenclature, that it could almost be like that would also demonstrate a lot of emotion and a lot of imagery as well.
that's kind of been our approach since day one. We've been a very melodic band, and we think about not just like groove riffs, but also how our instruments do voicing themselves. So that's kind of like been a big part of our sound, and especially growing into what we did with Nomenclature. We kind of like focused on that, and then in this new album, we kind of stepped that up.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you, because I always thought that the guitars and the lead vocals are pretty much almost like the same thing in terms of conveying emotion with the use of melody and with the use of just all-out intensity.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a theoretical background in a way? Like, do you know what scale you're working off of or chord progression, or do you tend to be more on the self-taught side?
A lot of our stuff. I have a little bit of a theoretical background, but not too heavy. We kind of go more on feel. I would say that we're definitely kind of sticking to a lot of like chromatic stuff and a lot of like add major 9 things as far as like guitar work goes.
Okay, and are you thinking about that so much when you play, or is that just kind of like not even really much of a priority?
It kind of comes naturally, and then whatever gaps we find in the songwriting process, we kind of then have to shift back to, okay, well, theory-wise, this makes sense to do it this here, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people have discovered you off of Nomenclature. I think, it really got a lot of people on board. But, it wasn't the first offering that we've gotten from Iatt. Was Never Follow the Light also kind of like a concept-based in a way as well?
That one, not so much. That was kind of like our first foray into really putting ourselves out there. We had done a bunch of EPs before. That was kind of like our first full-length, our first actual push to kind of like put ourselves out there. So that one was kind of like, it was a learning process in itself. It was kind of a big first for us.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah, for sure. Some things worked, some things didn't work, and
Well, I still felt that album was actually pretty sick too. Are you incorporating that into your set as well, or were you just focusing strictly on Nomenclature?
There's a couple songs that we used to have in our rotation from the Gnosis Never Follow the Light album. That was I think the first track, Metre Finisete. We played that one a long time. And I think we still do pull that one out every once in a while. There's a couple tracks off that we still use.
Yeah, you got to go down the road a little bit, because I discovered you guys on Holy EP back in
oh wow,
was that in like 2013 or something like that?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Wow.
Yeah. Is there ever, because I know that nomenclature was very conceptual driven though, but like, is there also any vestige of your personal experiences that drive the subject of an album as well?
Jay, the vocalist, well, he plays bass now as well, but Jay, the vocalist, has always made sure that when he's writing lyrics, that they're kind of like double edged, that they have a story behind them, but also they're very personal.
Yeah, it's not like you're just, because I feel like a band that does it really well is Mastodon, because they're able to take historical elements but also bring in their personal elements to it as well. So I'd imagine that when you guys are like doing research on a concept, you also have to personally relate to it as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime we've done anything that, well, as far as lyrics go, Jay is really like the master at that kind of stuff. But even conceptually, we make sure that there's parallels that people can relate to when we're picking like a subject matter that we're focusing on.
Yeah. Now, I always thought that the music for Iatt is a little bit more on the experimental side as well. Like, I've discovered, I see elements of, like, technical elements on there. I see very atmospheric elements. And, I mean, just going on to nomenclature alone, I thought that, like, Hajima had a very different vibe from a song like Arsenic Ways or Realm of Dysmythia or, you name it. So, like, it's fair to say that you guys like to try new things sonically as well when creating new music, right?
Yeah, for sure. At first, when we were first starting out as a band, we kind of had it in our heads that we knew what we were sounding like, and that was kind of our style. And then as we kind of matured and got older, we realized that there is so much more ground to cover. That there are so many bands out there that are kind of doing the same thing, and that there's like so much free, open space, unclaimed, that you could tap into. So we are definitely trying to move. Not that we're moving, like we're actively moving into that genre of just being experimental, but that we've kind of freed ourselves of like, this is what interests us, this is what we find interesting, and people like that.
Yes. So, like, you're not trying to maybe again, I don't think you're a very easy band to pigeonhole. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I could see you playing with a band like Killswitch Engage, but I could also see you playing with a band like Behemoth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a band, we've always had that kind of like blackened influence. But at times there are some tracks that are very much death metal, very much experimental. So we kind of fall like in multiple spots across the board.
Which is awesome, and it has to keep it interesting for all of you as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all the guys have different, different like tastes and flavors that we prefer. So it's kind of cool when we were able to mesh them all together, and we've been doing it together for a long time now. So it kind of just comes naturally. Like when we're writing stuff, like we'll all kind of swing into a jazz section that just kind of like, that just flows so well, it works that way. Or, like now we're doing something that's very black metal, and then we incorporate something that's more almost like rock and roll style. That's just kind of like, we all just kind of swung that way. That's just the way that the music took us.
And is that subconsciously? Does it happen subconsciously like that, or do you kind of like are very focused in how you're changing up your sound?
It's honestly, it's mostly subconscious. It's just kind of the way that we've just grown accustomed to writing together.
Okay. How do you know when a song is done?
That's kind of tough. I mean, there's always like the temptation to like, let's die it down and bring it back up. Oh, let's die it down, bring it back up. But how many times can you do that? We kind of take it as the song has a journey, and then you just kind of feel when it's done, and then you have to fight the temptation to just like be a perfectionist and add more.
Yeah, especially since nomenclature varies a lot in song lengths.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing, is we don't actually really care about how long the song is. The song is as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like when it says everything you have to say, especially because nomenclature is a concept album, I feel like that each song is like a different chapter. So really,
For sure.
And some chapters are 3 pages, some chapters are 7 pages, some chapters are 200 pages. So
Yeah, for sure. We want each song to be kind of an emotional journey. Some emotional journeys are a lot shorter and more to the point than others.
And I know you don't want to give away too much of the concept now, but it doesn't seem like that Iatt is really like just focusing on the element of science that nomenclature obtained from, right? There could be elements of philosophy, there could be elements of history, there could be elements of science. Like, it seems like you're not just trying to address one type of concept, right, for the future?
I'll say that the subject matter we've chosen for the next album kind of hits on all of those. That there's a little bit of mysticism, there's a little bit of science involved, there's definitely history involved.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think people will be pretty stoked when we kind of roll out what it is we're doing for this new album.
I wish I discovered you guys when I was still in high school, or like still in college, because I could have maybe have used this album to help me with a lot of art history classes.
We've got that. Actually, we were playing a show maybe a year ago. Actually, it was probably around the time that Nomenclature came out. But we were playing a show in Pittsburgh, and we had some guy come up to us, and he was like, what was the name of that last song that you played? And, we told him, and he goes, you know that I'm an ER tech, and I just thought it was so cool to, like, hear the lyrics, and, like, you're actually saying medical terms in your lyrics. And we were like, yeah. Yeah, we've done our homework.
Did some of you, did he think that you guys worked as doctors as day jobs?
Jay, the vocalist, he's an EMT.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. During these times, please send him my thank yous, because...
for sure.
God, I'd imagine that the times that we're living in now definitely also has to influence the songwriting process, not just for you guys, but for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I think after we're kind of... I don't know if things are ever going to go back to where they were, but I think once we kind of find a new normal, I think we're in for some killer music just across the board. I think that bands are cooped up, pissed off, and I think we're going to get some really good music.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong, though. I hope that, we do eventually have concerts again and stuff.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm jonesing to play. Seriously. I cannot wait to get back out there and play.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many places that are closing down, and, every kind of, like, endpoint they put for us, kind of like we blow past it. Like, there's no end in sight, so who the hell knows?
Yeah, I was saying that when this is eventually over, that we are going to be entering the best era of music of all time.
I would agree, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and you got to play in New York City, because I've yet to see you guys. So
we've played a couple times in New York. Last time we were there, we played Kingsland.
Okay.
We were doing a small run with Tombs.
Okay,
who are
yeah.
Fucking cool dudes.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was at that show, or I was there earlier, but I had something to do that night, so damn it, I'm gonna.
We played there. We played at Lucky 13.
Yep.
At the bar.
That's my usual spot.
Cool. Yeah. There's a couple places. We played a place in Astoria, I want to say. Was it Gussie's, maybe?
Yeah. They sadly closed in the wake of this whole thing. So.
Jeez, that sucks.
Yeah, that's a fun. That was a fun place too.
Yeah, there's a lot of really awesome places to play in New York. So once this is all kind of said and done, like this whole pandemic thing, I definitely want to make it back out there.
Oh yeah, and we definitely look forward to having you. And that brings me into my final question, because when you play live, is that like a completely different art than when you're simply songwriting, or is there maybe a similar element that kind of ties those two arts together?
We've always been of the impression that you need to, whatever music you're creating, you need to be able to replicate that live to as perfect as you can. So we've really kind of drilled ourselves as being we have to be a live band. We have to be a live band. We have to be able to, whatever we play, we have to be able to duplicate it, if not put more passion into it when we're playing live.
Okay.
So there's definitely a practice to performing well enough that it sounds like the album.
Okay, so you don't try to change things up too much in the live presence, right?
No, not really. No, I think we try and stay as truthful as to what the album sounds like as possible.
Awesome. So people know what to expect at least.
Yeah, we just put out a live recorded concert performance that we did with some tracks off Nomenclature, and that was our goal was we wanted to give people who are reeling from show deprivation the feel of being in a small bar and seeing your band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we just put that out maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, because it's not just when you go see a band live. It's not even just seeing or hearing the band live. It's all these smells and this camaraderie and like these.
Yeah, there's an energy for sure. It's not just you're just watching people on stage. There's definitely an energy like back and forth between the audience and the band on stage. So that's something that unfortunately can't really be replicated.
Yeah, which is good because then that means that like this virtual live streaming thing is not going to get rid of concerts.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, that's something that they can't replace.
Yeah, unless when they do those virtual festivals, maybe if I get like a porta potty in my living room just to make it more authentic. But
just get a bunch of people that are like drunk, just like step over them to get to the porta potty.
Yeah, well, I will tell you this: that the food that is served at some of those festivals is like the best food ever. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I gained like 10 pounds from my first festival. So.
What are some good festivals that you've hit that you were like, oh man, like if that could come around again?
Well, last year was our first festival opportunity that we ever covered. We covered Sonic Temple Festival, which used to be Rock on the Range, but it changed to Sonic Temple. And I mean, that was actually, believe it or not, my first festival ever. It wasn't just working my first festival; it was my first festival, period.
Really? Like you hadn't been to any like kind of like the
Do you count Summer Slaughter?
Yeah, I count that. That's a festival for sure.
Okay, because Summer Slaughter is like one stage, like one, just like it's an all-day thing. But Summer Slaughter is fun. But like that was like my first real outdoor festival with like stadiums and stuff. So and I was working press, so like it was one interview after another, and then you get like a 2-hour break, and then you go watch some bands while you're eating a turkey leg and like. Oh my God!
Jeez, now you got me reminiscent now, and I'm missing shows now again.
Good. The more we miss it, the more likely they'll come back.
Yeah.
Just like sure. I remember watching Black Dahlia Murder while eating like a turkey leg and just having like a barbecue beer.
Dude, that sounds epic.
It sounds epic, but it was very messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you which interview I did where I had a barbecue beard and didn't even realize it. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this discussion. Just is there anything else with Iatt that you would like to promote in terms of like when can we be expecting the new album, or can we be doing some live stream performances just to hold us all over?
Yeah, so we just put out maybe a couple weeks ago. It should be on Black Lion Records YouTube. We put out our Wasteland sessions, and that's our live recorded performance that we put together. So if people are jonesing to see Iatt play live, unfortunately that's the next best thing, but you can watch that. It's free on YouTube. We're working on the new album now. We don't have any dates as far as release goes, but we'll be peppering in some information here and there within the coming months, because we're close to finishing like the recording process.
Oh, awesome! So we'll be getting it sooner than later.
I'd say, I don't want to put any hard dates down, but I'd say within 2021 probably.
Okay, just because, Nomenclature did a really good job at also leaving a lot of people wanting more, so people are starved for more Iatt.
Yeah, that's great. I think people who are starving for more Nomenclature are going to be very, very happy with the new album.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alec. Everybody, we are here with Alec of Iatt. Be sure to pick up the newest album, Nomenclature. New stuff coming very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.